Ladies and gentlemen, there is one sure way to make her pour water, and I am not talking about a jug or a glass. I am talking about unlocking the hidden reservoir of love, loyalty, strength, and generosity that flows only when it meets the right atmosphere. Too many people wonder why the well runs dry, yet they fail to realize it is not about demanding, but about inspiring. And when you discover the key to that inspiration, the flow that follows will not only quench your thirst, it will overflow into rivers that bless generations. And when you begin to see the act of pouring as sacred, you realize it is not something you should ever demand, but something you must inspire. Inspiration, not coercion, is the language of the heart. You cannot force the sun to rise, but by turning your face to the east, you prepare to receive its warmth. You cannot force a flower to bloom, but by watering it daily and keeping it in the light, you create the conditions where blooming becomes inevitable. In the same way, you cannot demand someone's water and expect it to flow willingly. You create the atmosphere where giving becomes a natural response, where pouring is not a burden, but a joy. One sure way to make her pour water is to recognize the invisible battles that she fights daily. Everyone walks through life carrying weights unseen by others. When you take the time to notice, when you show compassion without her having to explain every scar, you lighten the load. You become a partner in her journey, not just an observer. And when she feels seen in her struggles, when she senses that she doesn't have to fight alone, her heart overflows. Water flows fastest when the soil has been softened by empathy. Encouragement is a key that unlocks hidden reservoirs. Words have the power to build or to break, to open or to close. When your words affirm her worth, when your voice becomes a reminder of her potential, you give her wings. Encouragement does not always mean grand speeches. Sometimes it is the whisper that says, "You can do this." Sometimes it is the steady reminder that she is capable even when doubt clouds her mind. When she is encouraged, she becomes unstoppable, and in that strength, she pours generously. There is also the matter of integrity. Integrity is what separates the temporary from the eternal. When your character matches your promises, when your actions align with your values, you create a foundation that cannot be shaken. People pour into what is stable, what is reliable, what will not crumble when pressure comes. Integrity is not about perfection, but about honesty. It is about owning mistakes and choosing truth, even when it is costly. When she sees integrity, she knows her water will not be wasted. She knows her effort will not be swallowed by deceit, and so she pours without hesitation. Another sure way is to cultivate joy. Joy is magnetic. It attracts, it energizes, it heals. Nobody wants to pour into emptiness, into bitterness, into despair. But when you bring joy into her space, when your presence lifts instead of drains, she will respond with openness. Joy does not mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It means choosing gratitude even in difficulty, choosing light in the midst of shadows. When your spirit radiates positivity, her spirit will mirror it, and the water will flow without resistance. Forgiveness also opens the floodgates. Holding on to offense is like placing a stone in a river. It blocks the natural flow. When you learn to forgive quickly, to release anger before it festers, you create an atmosphere where healing can thrive. Nobody wants to pour into resentment. Nobody wants to pour where old wounds are constantly reopened. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it clears the way for a new future. And when forgiveness is practiced, trust grows, and from that trust comes the steady flow of water. One sure way to make her pour water is to show leadership with humility. Leadership is not about control. It is about responsibility. It is about guiding, protecting, and uplifting, not about dominance or ego. When leadership is exercised with humility, it becomes a shelter, not a cage. She will pour because she knows her water is going towards something purposeful, something bigger than herself, something that has direction. A leader without humility demands. A leader with humility inspires. And it is inspiration that draws the water out. Time is one of the greatest currencies. To give your time is to say, "You matter more than my schedule, more than my distractions." When you give time intentionally, without constantly glancing at your phone, without rushing to the next thing, you communicate value. Water is not poured into places that feel abandoned. But when you show up consistently, when you are present, not just in body but in spirit, her heart feels it. And from that presence comes release. Time spent is never wasted when it nurtures connection. There is power in small gestures, a gentle touch, a kind word, a thoughtful act. These may seem insignificant, but they accumulate. Just as rivers are made of countless drops, so are bonds strengthened by countless little acts of care. When you practice the art of thoughtfulness, when you remember the details that matter, you remind her that she is not invisible. And when a person feels seen even in the smallest ways, the desire to pour multiplies. Water flows most freely where attention has been given to the smallest cracks and corners. Sacrifice is another language of pouring. Nothing of true worth is sustained without sacrifice. To sacrifice is to say, I am willing to give up something of mine so you can gain something of yours. It may be comfort, it may be convenience, it may be pride, but every sacrifice is noticed. Every sacrifice sends a message that she is valued beyond selfish ambition. And when sacrifice is genuine, it awakens a reciprocal spirit. She will pour because she has witnessed you pour first. One sure way to make her pour water is to build memories. Shared experiences create bonds stronger than words. Memories become the anchors of loyalty. When the storms come, she will remember the laughter, the adventures, the quiet moments that stitched your lives together. These memories become reminders of why pouring is worth it, why the jug should never run dry. Build memories not for show, but for meaning, for connection, for the legacy of togetherness that endures long after the moment has passed. Honesty is another pillar. Secrets and half-truths erode trust, and without trust, water cannot flow. But when honesty is the foundation, when she knows she will always get the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, she will open up. Honesty creates clarity, and clarity creates freedom. Nobody pours into confusion. But when light shines and motives are clear, the flow becomes natural, unhindered, pure. Encouraging growth is essential. Stagnation dries the well. But when you nurture her growth, when you cheer for her progress, when you refuse to shrink her potential out of fear, you unlock reservoirs she didn't even know she had. To support growth is to say, I am not intimidated by your greatness. And when she sees that, when she feels that, her response is to give even more, to pour without holding back, because she knows her wings are safe with you. There is also the matter of faithfulness. Faithfulness is not just about presence. It is about loyalty of heart and mind. It is about choosing her even when nobody is watching, about standing firm even when opportunities to stray present themselves. Faithfulness is the soil in which trust grows deepest. And when she sees faithfulness, when she feels assured that she is not competing with shadows, her water becomes endless. The jug never empties when it is placed in the hands of someone who can be trusted. Finally, remember that water is life. To make her pour water is to awaken life, to create an atmosphere of renewal, of growth, of abundance. Every action that honors, every word that uplifts, every choice that respects is a call to the well. And when the well responds, when the water flows, it does more than quench. It transforms. It nourishes not just you, but everyone around, because true pouring never stays in one place. It overflows, it spreads, it multiplies, and it blesses beyond imagination. And when you begin to grasp that blessing is not confined to one direction, you will understand that every time she pours, the ripple goes farther than your eyes can see. It spills over into friendships, into families, into communities. Her act of pouring may look simple in the moment, but the effect is generational. A single stream has the power to carve valleys through mountains when it remains steady. That is what her water does when it is honored. It reshapes lives. It shifts futures. It rewrites stories. One sure way to make her pour water is to remain teachable. Nothing dries the well faster than pride. When you believe you know it all, when you refuse correction, when you cannot bend, you cut yourself off from her flow. But humility keeps the doors open. To be teachable is to say, I value what you carry. I value your perspective. I value your wisdom. And when she sees that you are willing to learn, she will pour not just water, but wisdom, guidance, and insight beyond your years. The greatest leaders in history were not those who claimed to know it all, but those who listened deeply to the voices around them and allowed themselves to be sharpened. Consistency in love is another pathway. Grand gestures may impress for a moment, but it is the steady presence, the daily kindness, the ordinary but reliable acts of love that create the deepest wells. A flower does not bloom because of one heavy rainfall. It blooms because of steady watering. In the same way, her heart will not pour because of a single overwhelming display, but because of the repeated assurance that she matters every single day. Consistency builds a rhythm, and rhythm builds trust, and trust makes the water flow like a river that never runs dry. Another sure way to make her pour water is to handle her silence well. Silence does not always mean emptiness. Sometimes it means she is gathering, processing, or healing. If you rush to fill the silence with your own noise, you miss the chance to understand what lies beneath. But if you hold the silence gently, with patience, with presence, you allow her to come forth at her own pace. Water that is forced gushes wildly and causes damage, but water that is invited trickles gently and nourishes the soil. Do not fear her quiet moments. Honor them, and you will discover that silence often hides the richest depths. Hope is another key. To carry hope is to carry light into dark places. When life becomes heavy, when challenges rise, when dreams seem delayed, your ability to speak hope can be a difference between despair and resilience. If your words breathe hope, if your presence reminds her that tomorrow is still worth fighting for, you give her strength to pour even when she feels empty. Hope is contagious. It multiplies when shared. One spark of hope from you can ignite a fire of possibility in her, and from that fire flows a flood of water you never thought possible. One sure way to make her pour water is to honor her boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are guardrails. They are the signs that say, respect my space, respect my values, respect my process. When you trample over boundaries, you communicate carelessness. But when you respect them, you show reverence for who she is and what she stands for. That respect invites safety, and safety invites pouring. Boundaries do not mean distance. They mean protection. Protect what matters to her, and she will release what matters to you. Another way is to cultivate vision. Vision is the map that guides the journey. Without vision, people wander. With vision, they walk with purpose. When you carry vision, when you share it clearly, when you invite her into something meaningful, she will pour because she sees where the water is going. Nobody wants to pour into a broken jar. Nobody wants to pour into something directionless. But when she sees vision, whether it is for a family, a career, a community, or a future, she knows her pouring has purpose. Vision multiplies energy. It multiplies passion. It multiplies sacrifice. Kindness is underestimated but powerful. Acts of kindness may seem small, but they plant seeds in her heart that bear fruit for years. A gentle word when she least expects it, a thoughtful gesture when she needs it most, an act of service when she is weary. All of these remind her that she is not alone. Kindness disarms defenses. Kindness melts away suspicion. Kindness turns a trickle into a flood. The world may tell you that strength is found in dominance, but true strength is found in kindness, for it unlocks doors that force never could. There is also the principle of reciprocity. What you give, you receive. If you want her to pour water, then pour into her first. Pour affirmation, pour encouragement, pour time, pour effort, pour prayers if you must. When you make deposits into her well, she will overflow into yours. It is not manipulation. It is simply the law of sowing and reaping. You cannot harvest what you have not planted. If you sow scarcity, you will reap scarcity. If you sow abundance, you will reap abundance. Pour first, and the return will surprise you. Another sure way to make her pour water is to show resilience. Life will test you both. There will be storms, disappointments, and failures. If every setback makes you crumble, if every challenge makes you bitter, she will hold back her water. But when you rise after falling, when you keep faith after delay, when you smile after hardship, you inspire her to do the same. Resilience is magnetic. It tells her that even if she pours into you, you are strong enough to carry it, to protect it, to multiply it. People pour into those who rise, not those who sink. Gratitude cannot be overstated. Gratitude turns little into enough, and enough into overflow. When you express gratitude, not just in words, but in actions, you honor the water that has been poured already. Gratitude is remembering, not forgetting. Gratitude is treasuring, not discarding. And when she feels that her giving is remembered, treasured, and valued, she is moved to continue. Gratitude is not just politeness. It is the soil in which generosity thrives. Without it, the river dries up. With it, the river expands beyond its banks. Trustworthiness is another anchor. She cannot pour water if she feels her water will be mishandled. If her secrets become your gossip, if her vulnerability becomes your weapon, if her trust becomes your game, she will stop pouring. But when you guard what she gives, when you protect her heart, when you stand as a safe place, the floodgates open. Trustworthiness is not built in a moment. It is built in years of consistent action. Be the kind of person who can be trusted, and the water will never stop flowing. Another sure way to make her pour water is to embrace the power of partnership. Partnership means walking together, not ahead or behind. It means carrying burdens together, sharing joys together, building dreams together. Partnership is about saying, we are on the same team. And when she feels that, when she sees that her voice matters, her presence matters, her contribution matters, she pours without hesitation. Nobody wants to pour where they feel sidelined, but when she knows she is part of the mission, she will give not just water, but her entire strength. Finally, remember that her pouring is not about obligation, it is about inspiration. It is about the atmosphere you create, the respect you show, the love you give, the hope you carry, the vision you share, the gratitude you express, the trust you maintain. When these elements are present, pouring becomes effortless. It becomes a joy, not a chore. It becomes an overflow, not a drain. And when water flows in that way, it does not only sustain, it creates life, multiplies blessing, and shapes destinies in ways far greater than you could ever imagine. And when you begin to see destiny in this way, you realize that every drop of water she pours is not random, it is intentional. Nothing she gives is wasted when it is received with the right heart. It is easy to dismiss small gestures, to overlook the quiet acts of giving, but in truth, it is the accumulation of those drops that creates the flood. The ocean is not formed in a day. It is formed by countless streams that never cease to give. And when you learn to honor even the smallest draw, P, you prepare yourself for the tide that is yet to come. One sure way to make her pour water is to create stability. Stability is not about wealth or possessions. It is about reliability. It is about becoming a steady rock in a world that is constantly shifting. If she feels that tomorrow with you is unpredictable, her heart will hesitate. But if she sees that you stand unmoved through storms, if she senses that you are grounded in values that do not change with the wind, her trust grows. And from that trust, the water flows. Stability creates the foundation upon which generosity rests, because nobody pours into ground that is shaking beneath their feet. There is also the principle of presence. Presence is more than being physically close. It is about emotional connection, mental attentiveness, spiritual alignment. You could sit in the same room and yet be miles apart if your mind is elsewhere. But when your presence is full, when your eyes meet with understanding, when your hands are free of distraction, she feels it. And when she feels truly present with you, she opens her well. Presence is magnetic. It whispers, "You matter enough for me to give my undivided self." That whisper is powerful enough to draw water where words alone cannot. Encouraging her uniqueness is another sure way. No two wells are the same. No two rivers flow alike. Comparison is the thief of abundance. If you constantly measure her against others, you dry her spirit. But if you celebrate her uniqueness, if you acknowledge her particular gifts, her distinct beauty, her uncommon perspective, you will see her overflow with joy. People pour where they feel celebrated, not where they feel diminished. When you uplift her individuality instead of trying to mold her into someone else, you create the freedom that makes pouring effortless. Sacredness is vital too. Sacredness means treating her water as holy, her time as valuable, her presence as irreplaceable. Too often we treat blessings as ordinary until they slip through our fingers. But when you handle her offerings with reverence, when you acknowledge that not everyone would give as she gives, when you recognize that her pouring is an act of grace, you multiply the flow. Sacredness breeds gratitude, and gratitude multiplies abundance. The moment you see what she gives as ordinary is the moment the river begins to shrink. Keep her water sacred, and it will never stop coming. One sure way to make her pour water is to be transparent. Transparency is vulnerability with courage. It says, I have nothing to hide. When you are transparent, you create an atmosphere where she too can be transparent, where she does not have to conceal, where she can release freely without fear of being judged. Secrets build walls, but honesty builds bridges, and on bridges, water flows easily from one side to the other. Transparency creates the flow of trust, and trust is the lifeline of pouring. Laughter is another doorway. Do not underestimate the power of joy shared through laughter. When you create moments where she can let go of heaviness, where she can laugh until her heart is light, you give her reasons to pour. Laughter bonds souls in ways words never could. It reminds her that life is not only about burdens, it is also about beauty. It is also about freedom. And when she feels that her laughter is safe with you, her water follows. Another sure way to make her pour water is to honor her dreams. Dreams are fragile treasures. They are seeds that require nurturing. When you dismiss them, you crush them. When you belittle them, you choke them. But when you listen, when you support, when you make room for her dreams to grow alongside yours, she pours abundantly. She pours because she knows her dreams are not competing with yours, but complementing them. Honor her dreams, and she will give you her strength, her energy, her best self, because she knows her future is safe in your presence. One sure way is to protect her peace. Peace is priceless. When chaos surrounds her, when noise overwhelms her, when the world pulls at her from every direction, the one thing she longs for is peace. If you are the source of her peace, she will pour water without measure. If you are the storm, she will withhold it. Protect her peace with your choices, with your tone, with your actions. Peace is the fertile ground where love and generosity thrive. Without it, water dries up. With it, water cascades freely, refreshing everything it touches. There is also strength in affirmation. Words shape the heart, and repeated affirmations build identity. When you affirm her consistently, you remind her of who she is, even on days when she forgets. Affirmation is not flattery. It is truth spoken with love. It is reminding her of her strength when she feels weak, her beauty when she feels invisible, her value when she feels forgotten. Affirmation waters her soul, and a well-watered soul cannot help but pour back. One sure way to make her pour water is to celebrate her victories, no matter how small. Many overlook the importance of celebrating small steps, but celebration fuels momentum. If she finishes a task, if she accomplishes a goal, if she overcomes a fear, your celebration reinforces her worth. It says, I see your effort. And when she knows her wins are valued, she pours her joy, her energy, her commitment into the connection. Celebration magnifies water, turning drops into streams. Faith is another element. Faith is believing even when you cannot see, trusting even when the outcome is unclear. When you carry faith, not just in the future, but in her, she is compelled to give. Faith says, I believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. And when she feels that kind of faith, when she knows someone is standing beside her with unwavering confidence, her water overflows. Faith is the invisible force that breaks dams and sets rivers free. Another sure way is to nurture consistency in values. When your principles are strong, when your character is unshaken, she knows her pouring has direction. Without values, actions are empty. But with values, actions have depth, and pouring becomes meaningful. Values anchor relationships, giving them purpose beyond fleeting emotions. Live with integrity, and you will see her water flow not just in moments of joy, but in seasons of trial as well. Resonance is key too. Resonance means aligning with her spirit, not just her words. Sometimes she will not say what she feels, but her spirit will whisper. When you tune in, when you respond not just to what she says, but to what she means, you show a deeper connection. Resonance tells her, I understand you beyond the surface. And when she feels understood at that level, she will pour at depths even she did not know existed. One sure way to make her pour water is to stand with her in adversity. It is easy to be present in celebration, but true strength is shown in difficulty. When the world turns away, if you choose to stand, you become her refuge. And in return, she gives you her loyalty, her trust, her generosity. Adversity reveals the truth of who you are. If you can be counted on when storms rage, you will never thirst because her water will always find you. And never forget that pouring is not only about giving outward, it is about connection inward. Every time she pours, she is not just filling you, she is also healing herself. She is reminding herself that love, kindness, and generosity are still alive within her. And when you receive her pouring with reverence, you become part of her healing, part of her renewal, part of her becoming. And in that sacred cycle, the water never runs out. It only multiplies, expanding into rivers, lakes, and oceans of abundance. And when those rivers, lakes, and oceans begin to take form, you realize that abundance is never still. It moves, it spreads, it flows into places unseen. Water has a way of finding cracks, of reaching the lowest valleys, of refreshing even the driest lands. That is how her giving works when it is nurtured. It seeps into forgotten corners. It breathes life into neglected spaces. It carries healing where drought once lived. But the flow does not continue by chance. It continues through care, through reverence, through the intentional act of honoring every drop. One sure way to make her pour water is to be dependable in the small things. Grand promises mean little if the daily commitments are neglected. If you say you will call, then call. If you promise to show up, then show up. Dependability in the little things builds faith in the bigger ones, and when she knows she can count on you in the ordinary, she will not hesitate to pour in the extraordinary. Reliability is like a gentle stream that cuts through stone, not by force, but by persistence. When she sees that you are dependable, her water flows naturally. Encouraging renewal is also key. Everyone grows weary. Everyone reaches a point where the weight of life feels heavy. If you can create moments that refresh her soul, if you can provide space for rest, laughter, reflection, and peace, she will pour again with new energy. Renewal is not about fixing everything. It is about creating an environment where her spirit can breathe. When she feels renewed, her jug never runs dry because she knows she is not carrying the burden of giving alone. Another sure way to make her pour water is to embrace patience during transitions. Life is filled with seasons, times of growth, times of waiting, times of harvest, times of pruning. If you pressure her in the seasons where she is still unfolding, you risk breaking what is fragile. But if you give her time, if you walk beside her during in the slow moments, if you encourage her even when progress is not visible, you communicate faith in the process. Patience tells her, I believe in your journey. And that belief is powerful enough to unlock rivers that were hidden deep beneath the surface. Protecting her dignity is another foundation. Dignity is the crown every human wears, whether seen or unseen. When you treat her with respect, when you shield her from shame, when you guard her reputation in public and in private, you elevate her worth. Nobody pours into a place where their dignity is trampled. But when she feels honored, when her crown is intact, her water becomes an offering she is eager to share. Protect her dignity, and you protect the flow of abundance. One sure way to make her pour water is to stand consistent in your values when tested. It is easy to speak of kindness, respect, and loyalty when life is comfortable. The true measure comes when pressure arises, when temptation whispers, when storms rage. If you remain steadfast in those moments, you prove that your words are not empty. And when she witnesses your consistency under fire, she will pour with assurance, knowing her water is safe with someone who does not bend with every wind. There is also the necessity of gentleness. Gentleness is not weakness, it is controlled strength. It is the hand that could crush, but chooses instead to hold with care. When you practice gentleness, in tone, in touch, in response, you invite her to let go of her guard. Gentleness tells her, "You are safe with me." And in that safety, her water flows without fear of spillage or waste. The world is often harsh, but gentleness creates a sanctuary, and in sanctuaries, pouring is abundant. Another way is to share responsibility. Carrying burdens together lightens the load and creates unity. If you expect her to pour endlessly while you contribute nothing, exhaustion will dry the well. But when you shoulder responsibility, whether in work, in family, in daily life, you tell her, that partnership is real. Shared responsibility strengthens bonds, and from those bonds, water flows freely. It is not about perfection, but about effort, about showing up, about saying, "We are in this together." Acknowledging her strength is another path. Too often, the strength of women is overlooked or taken for granted. But when you acknowledge her resilience, when you celebrate her ability to rise, when you honor the battles she has fought quietly, you empower her spirit. Acknowledgement is not about flattery, it is about truth. And when the truth of her strength is spoken, she stands taller, and from that place of confidence, her pouring is amplified. One sure way to make her pour water is to keep promises sacred. Promises are fragile bridges. When kept, they build trust. When broken, they collapse years of progress. If you treat your word as binding, if you uphold even the promises that cost you, you become trustworthy. And trustworthiness is the soil in which abundance thrives. She will pour not because she has to, but because she believes in the sanctity of your word. Promises kept open floodgates. Promises broken build dams. Another sure way is to cultivate gratitude not only for what she gives, but for who she is. Gratitude should not be limited to actions received. It should extend to identity. Thank her not only for what she does, but for who she is becoming. Recognize the essence, not just the outcome. Gratitude for being, not just doing, unlocks deeper levels of generosity. When she feels appreciated for simply existing, her pouring becomes more than duty. It becomes delight. Creating legacy together is also a key. When she sees that your efforts are building something lasting, something that outlives the present moment, she is compelled to give her best. Legacy is not about wealth alone. It is about values, impact, memories, and influence that ripple through generations. If she senses that her pouring is contributing to a greater vision, she will never hold back. Legacy elevates the purpose of pouring beyond the present into eternity. One sure way to make her pour water is to be courageous enough to lead with vulnerability. Vulnerability says, "I trust you with my weaknesses, my fears, my hopes." It invites authenticity. And authenticity inspires authenticity in return. When she sees that you are not hiding behind walls of pride, when you are willing to show the unpolished parts of yourself, she feels free to do the same. Vulnerability opens wells deeper than strength alone ever could. There is also the principle of celebration through seasons. Life is not always harvest. Sometimes it is winter, sometimes it is drought, sometimes it is planting. If you can learn to celebrate with her in every season, not only when things are easy, you create resilience together. Celebrate small joys in the midst of hardship. Celebrate growth in the midst of waiting. Celebrate progress in the midst of delay. Celebration shifts perspective, and with perspective comes strength. And with strength, her water flows even in dry places. Another sure way to make her pour water is to lead with vision beyond yourself. If everything is about you, if all pouring benefits only your desires, the well will shrink. But when she sees that your vision includes others, that her pouring will impact children, families, communities, nations, her giving multiplies. People pour into what transcends them. A river is not meant to circle endlessly in one pond. It is meant to flow outward, touching lands beyond its source. Vision beyond yourself creates an endless current. Finally, remember that pouring is not just about what she gives outwardly, but also about who she becomes through the act of giving. Every drop she releases shapes her character, refines her spirit, expands her capacity. When you nurture the environment that allows her to pour freely, you are not just receiving, you are partnering in her becoming. And in that becoming, both of you rise, both of you expand, both of you step into abundance that cannot be measured, only experienced, like waves that never cease and oceans that know no end.